Morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. I hope you had a really good weekend. Yes, time to get back to the grind, and unexpectedly or expectedly, the United States, President Trump deciding to take action against Iran and their nuclear facilities. Were they building a bomb? Were they not building a bomb? Doesn't really matter because, we just decided we wanted to bomb. Our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. Right now, gold is up. Silver is up. Wall Street is up. Not a lot, but up. Crude oil right now down a tad. The president warning people that he is watching, saying that he demanded that everyone keep oil prices down, or they would play into the hands of the enemy. Everyone keep oil prices down. I'm watching. I don't wonder what that means. Don't do it, was his message to the Energy Department. So I guess that was his message in general. Was he, I don't know, warning? Was that for the bankers? Was that for speculators? Not to drive up oil prices. And then he sent a message, I guess, well, in public, but directly to the Department of Energy. Drill, baby, drill. And I mean now. So we'll see. I think it's all going to come down to what happens in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's parliament has said that they want to shut down the Straits of Hormuz. And for those of you that maybe haven't had the time yet to look up the Strait of Hormuz, it runs right along the border with Iran. It runs the entire border, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. I mean, it truly is extremely important body of water as far as oil goes. And there's other things which we were going to learn. Apparently, farmers, this may have a big impact on fertilizer costs. The Iranians, one of the largest, I think they're the third. Don't quote. I think they're the third. They may be the second largest, second or third largest, or one of the big ones. When it comes to the urea production that goes into fertilizer, so we're going to have to watch those. And really, the biggest point of contention, they call it the choke point, and it's right. It's the smallest, I guess, the smallest point in the Strait of Hormuz where the United Arab Emirates, right, their land, if you will, kind of juts out, and you have to go right next to the Iranian border. It's a 20-mile stretch. 20 miles, in the ocean, it's like a needle in a haystack. But the problem is, for these big ships, there's only about a 2-mile stretch where the water's deep enough, safe enough. So you're really talking about a much smaller area. And that is where the Iranians apparently, put mines in there, do stuff. Apparently, they can stop the traffic. If they do that, then all bets are off, right? Any interruption especially something that could go days, weeks, heaven forbid, longer than that, right? Then you're talking, okay, oil prices are going to go through the roof. You're probably going to be, at that point, talking regime change. The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, was out this morning saying that the U.S. administration is confident that Sunday's bombing of 3 key nuclear sites accomplished its job of dismantling Tehran's alleged nuclear ambitions. She also said Trump made the decision based on his own instincts and the intelligence that he saw. The strike made the homeland safer. Now, we'll find out. It was interesting, though. What was interesting in it was the following comments. Again, this was Caroline Leavitt this morning, the press secretary. If the Iranian regime refuses to come to a peaceful diplomatic solution, which the president is still interested in engaging in, why shouldn't the Iranian people take away the power of this incredibly violent regime? I think we all know the answer to that, which is they're still in power. So does that mean the United States may be talking regime change if they close the Straits of Hormuz? And it looks like it. We'll be back. 800-951-0592 is our toll-free number. AllAmericanGold.com website. We take a quick look in at the markets. Right now, the Dow's up 100. The S&P's up 31. The Nasdaq's up 120. A lot of that is Tesla. Tesla had I guess they debuted their robo-taxis in Austin, Texas. Kind of, I guess, Tesla's version of the Waymos, right? The self-driving cars. On a good note, the 10-year note is down today, 432. A little bit, I guess, of a flight to safety. And again, we would expect something bigger, but we'll take it. Crude oil right now down 60 cents. We'll see how long that lasts. By the way, just got a note coming across the board here. Insurance rates have now skyrocketed for deliveries of oil. So they're speculating, hey, even if oil prices don't go up, prices are going up. We'll see, but we'll watch it. See how high the insurance rates do get. Gold's up 18, 33.87. So kind of hovering right below that 3,400 mark. Got above it for a day. Wasn't able to stick. We'll see. And again, 3,400 still is the key level. We want closes above 3,400. And then 4,000 comes. I think that really just comes. What is going to be the next driver of gold? I don't think I guess if this thing gets worse, if Iran does block the straits and it goes on, for a week or more, you're probably going to see some elevated gold prices. Obviously, if something really bad happens, and I don't even know what that would be, but some form of, sleeper cell targets and all that other stuff, then potentially could be. But the real big drivers are going to be what happens with the big, beautiful bill, the budget. How much more debt is the United States going to be on? That's going to be the longer-term catalyst to 4,000. Silver up 30 cents here, 36 and a quarter. Platinum banging on the door, 1,300 again, up 31, 21.96. And like I said, there's so many reasons to be more diversified as we kind of see what's coming here. It's not. I don't think it's by accident. War drums are beating. When we have major financial things, that tends to be the answer. You know, you go back to the world wars and all of these types of events, and we're here. We're here. I don't know if this is going to lead to something even bigger. I hope not. Don't lose focus here. Nothing. As a matter of fact, if anything, it's gotten worse now. Right? Think about it. And now we're going to want to spend even more money. Right? I mean, that's usually what happens. We did get some economic data out today. We got PMI. It was, I'll call it mixed. Manufacturing was flat. Services beat, but barely. They were expecting 52.9. It came in at 53.1. So it's kind of flat. Let's just call it flat. Inside, prices rose sharply, particularly in the service areas. They're saying that not just tariffs, higher financing, wages, fuel costs. So already starting to see, and we saw a little bit, May was the bottom, right, in energy cost. This is obviously, this won't help, but we'll keep our eye on it. It was fine outside of, okay, are we finally going to see some inflation? If we weren't, the longer this thing goes with Iran, obviously the higher the energy prices are going to be. And then we had existing home sales. I don't know what to say. Rose less than 1% month over month in May. And I mean, May is like home buying season. Sales are down year over year. Fourth straight month of year over year declines. By the way, it was down 4% unadjusted. Why would you have to adjust it in May? I don't know. But the actual data, much worse than the seasonally adjusted data. According to the head economist, Lawrence Young, the problem is high mortgage rates. I would argue high prices is probably the bigger problem. I mean, mortgage rates outside of the mortgage rates from the financial crisis forward, these would not be historically high rates. Really. These would not be. I mean, it's not like the late 70s into the early part of the 80s. By the way, the second worst May ever. I think it was the May of COVID was the only one that was worse. Could be, actually, I think it took out COVID. I apologize. It was the May of the financial crisis. I want to say May of 08. Maybe it was May of 09. One of those two was the worst ever. Supply is showing up everywhere. So we can solely blame this on affordability. The median price rose again. Right? It's like, wow, how? 1.3%, $423,000. By the way, that was also a record. So we had the second worst sales May ever, and yet the highest median home price for the month of May ever. Prices are up 51% since the pandemic. And, well, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? Have you figured it out yet? I don't know how this ends. It's not going to be good. Because we got two problems. Number one, cost is the cost. What would a housing crash look like this time around? I mean, we can't go back to homes costing $100,000. Can't build it. Can't get it done. I guess we're stuck with this, right? No one can sell. No one can move. No one can afford to actually buy the homes. We'll see. We'll see. Interest rates are going to be the key. I don't know how far. Housing prices should obviously come down. I mean, that's the most logical thing. Maybe on an existing home. Maybe. Right? Somebody that, hey, I was fortunate, my house was paid off. I can sell it for whatever. For those that don't have mortgages. Then maybe, I guess you could sell it for less than what it would cost to build one. Other than that, I don't see it. And unfortunately, I don't see the cost of building homes going to be cheaper. Actually, if anything, I think they're going to even get more expensive, if you can believe that. It's a really tough thing that we're in. Some interesting things happening inside the Federal Reserve. So remember, they just had their meeting. Didn't raise rates. Matter of fact, they voted 9-0. So remember, the Fed, they vote. Because it's very, very democratic. They vote as to whether or not they agree with what Jay Powell comes out and tells the media. Fed Governor Christopher Waller, by the way, he is a voting member. Not all of them vote it rotates, but he's a voting member. He voted to not raise rates. He has now emerged as one of the people under consideration to replace Jay Powell. He said, ready for this? He said that he expects, I shouldn't say that he expects, that's the wrong thing, that a rate cut could be coming as early as the end of July. Right, that's the next meeting. And I was in an interview on CNBC. People are speculating he's campaigning for the job. And I felt like thinking to myself, well, gosh, why didn't you vote against not cutting rates at this meeting? Right? I mean, you could have. That would have been. Saying it after the fact, kind of, right? So let's see how he votes. Let's see how he votes. We weren't done. Then the Fed vice chair. So that's like number 2 in the Fed. It's a woman named Michelle Bowman. She came out and said essentially the same thing. Now, of course, remember, Bowman voted against the 50 basis cut that they made, what was that, a year and a half ago? She now is saying, given the pressure on housing, yeah, you're hearing me, and, quote, affordability of housing, we need to potentially lower rates. By the way, she's also wanting to replace Powell. Should inflation pressures remain contained, I would support lowering the policy rate as soon as our next meeting. So now, by the way, she also, like I said, she votes every meeting. Very interesting. Both of these two have not voted for rate cuts, have now said that they want to cut rates at the next meeting. So let's watch. Let's watch. Why would that be important? If consensus starts coming for rate cuts at the next meeting, that will be the start of the next leg in gold. Very simply put, they want to weaken the dollar, right? They would rather risk inflation. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. $20 gold continuing to be the cheapest entry into the gold market here. $3,520. Gold right now, $33.90. So kind of right at the highs of the day here. Still got some $5 Indians available at $910. Cheaper than a $5 Liberty today. 800-951-0592. So you probably have, I would say, the two most important people not named Jay Powell. Christopher Waller, who has been on the Trump short list for a while, and now the vice chair, who has now kind of, she's on the list. I don't know that I would say she's high on the list. Now trying to, I don't know, maybe say, hey, wait, don't count me out. Michelle Bowman has now come out and said she also wants to cut rates at the next meeting. And it's interesting because they kind of acknowledge that, yeah, I mean, let's not wait to cut until after the job market tanks. So do they know something about the jobs market that we don't? Second round tariffs, we're not seeing the inflationary effects. Not all tariffs are going to be passed through to inflation, which is true, right? Right. The suppliers are going to eat some, right? The people buying it's going to eat a little bit, right? Everyone's going to take a bite of it. And, well, we're probably going to see inflation rise. We are? Oh, wait. But it'll only be 0.3%. So why not cut? There you go. Okay.
It starts with a little cut, then it gets a little bigger, and then it gets a little bigger. and then before you know, I don't think we go to zero, but I don't know, Joe, can they get it down to 2.5 maybe, to make everything happy, because you got things blowing up and the world getting a little chaotic. Who's going to know an extra point or two? Who's going to notice?
You know what will be interesting, because I think you're right. Here's the problem. I don't think we can go back to zero. I don't think the markets would allow. I mean, I guess they could, right? In theory, they could go back to zero. How much will the bond market actually allow? In other words, remember the last time they cut, okay? Remember that, we were just talking about how Bowman was the dissenter on the 50 basis point cut. Remember what interest rates did, right? The yields actually rose. Right? The Fed, what did they cut? Almost a point total? I think it was a point. One whole point. And yet the 10-year note was actually higher than when they started cutting. In other words, I don't know, and here's the problem. What will the bond market allow? In other words, let's just say this starts happening, okay? They're feeling the pressure. Donald Trump wants a rate cut for, I think, all the right reasons, which is, hey, I want to pay less interest on the debt. So think about it this way. Look at where the Trump administration is coming from. We're going to increase the debt by, let's just say, $300 billion. Okay? Because that's probably a fair number. If the economy gets a lot worse, it'll be bigger, but let's call it $300 billion. If they can lower the interest payments on the debt, hey, well, maybe it will be like only raising it $100 billion instead of $300 billion, right? I mean, if they got really lucky, right, what's the best case scenario? Well, it only cost us $200 billion, and the Fed lowered rates, and somehow the deficit stayed the same. Heck, maybe it could even go down a little bit if they lowered them enough, right? Because we're going to save a whole bunch on interest rates, and that's really the question, Jason, is can we save? Because I know the last time they cut, it didn't save us anything. Right, because the interest rates kept going up. I don't know. I don't know what the market will do.
Well, short term is a little harder to tell, right, Joe?
Well, yeah, that's all Trump cares about. He doesn't care. He's like, I'm out of here. I've only got 3 years left.
But long term, and we haven't spoke about it in a while because we've had the inflation the last couple of years. There is a way that if you had none of this pesky paper money anymore, and it was all digital money, that you could set this thing into negative interest rates. You can make cash that's still available. Let's just say cash isn't illegal, but it'll just be costly. You go to a store, and they have a 10% cash charge. You go to spend $100 at Walmart, and you get a 10%, let's just call it a tax on cash. So everybody's in digital. Now you got everybody in digital, you go to negative interest rates. Well, then you say, well, what about the inflation? Well, with the negative interest rates, you have this idea that you can control the inflation because then you tell people what they can or can't buy. You can't have inflation if you don't let people go to Walmart during COVID and buy all the toilet paper. Right, Joe? It's a theory. I don't think it works. But as far as kicking the can down the road, Joe, if you have a huge emergency, you get the world all freaked out, whatever the next huge thing is, whether it be a war or a war wrapped in a pandemic or whatever it's going to be, that's the ultimate for the bankers, right, Joe? We need to go to high interest rates. We need to go to negative interest rates because, hey, we could control the inflation and the crashing markets if we could just get that way down to negative interest rates, and then we control through digital money what people can purchase. If you want to be a hog and purchase extra stuff, you can pay 3 times as much for that extra bag of toilet paper, right, Joe? See what I mean? We don't have that yet, so we're going to have a weird emergency coming up here, I think. A war, probably, I'm guessing, right?
800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason will be back after the break. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. $20 gold. 35.20, $5 Indians, 9.10 at 800-951-0592. And Jason's bringing up something where, how does going digital help? And of course, we've been talking to you guys about Texit. Is it the second chance at Bitcoin? Could be. We think so. We think so. But understand what it gives the Federal Reserve. Because they'll tell, oh, no, we don't want a central bank digital currency. Of course we don't. Yet, at the same time, they've been working behind our backs to do just that. Right? But it allows them the ability to change a lot of things. Well, you may still have to pay 7% for a mortgage, or God knows what a car interest rates are. They're never as good unless you got really, really good credit. Credit cards outrageous. Anyone carrying a balance on a credit card, I feel bad. I get it for a lot of people that it's just a way of life. It's 20% is like fantastic, right? Most people are probably near 30%. It's crazy. But the ability to pick and choose what interest rates can be. In other words, see, they used to give this, hey, we lower rates, we boost the economy, right? And how did that methodology work? Really simple, right? Housing becomes more affordable, right? A loan at 5%, way cheaper than 7%. It doesn't sound like, because 5 and 7, it's not that far apart. Oh, it is. 4% to 7%, holy cow. Changes everything, right? Cars, right? Remember 0%? It didn't matter what car. Now, the only cars you get near 0% are the ones nobody wants, right? Those are like the only ones. And they pull all this stuff forward. That's the thought behind it. And then, of course, if the economy's too hot, we'll raise rates, cool it off. Yep. Right? That's not working anymore. See, that's the problem. Well, it was nonsense. It was idiotic economic theory. It didn't actually work to begin with. Now, with a digital currency coming around, they can just say any money sitting in your bank account or your Fed account, whatever you want to call it, I don't care, is now at a negative interest rate. Because remember, what do they hate the most? The public enemy number one is anybody that has large amounts of money in the bank. They don't mind it in your 401k or your IRA as much. But they hate it when it's in your bank account. Hate it. And that was the other thought. Well, you got a lot of money in your bank account. We lower interest rates enough. You'll buy a house, a car, a boat, right? You'll spend it.
They want you to move the money fast.
Yep. And by going to a digital currency, it gives them a brand new weapon. And they are going to use it. Why do you think all this stuff's happened in that lightning speed? Look at it. We just had the Genius Act passed, and Republicans and Democrats voted for it. Right? This wasn't like, oh my gosh, it was 52-48, like, everything is, No. Tons of Democrats said, yes. That should tell you. I hope I encourage you guys, and I've been, to get started with Texit with us. Why? Well, number one, I think it's going to do real well. It may not. It could blow up. I could be wrong. What would it cost you? Well, the worst, it would be $8,955. That'd be the worst.
That's the most you're allowed to pay to buy shares.
Right. You can't spend any more than that. It won't let you. Having said that, we all just need to know how to operate in this space. Because the people that don't are going to get smacked the worst because they won't know what else to do. They're just going to let it sit in those bank accounts, and they're going to get jackhammered. That's what's coming, right? Where no one's talking about ending the central bank. I keep listening. Can't hear it. Nope. No. There's maybe Thomas Massey, public enemy number one, right? Rand Paul. That's about it.
When somebody pokes their head out and talks about getting rid of the central bank, they always say, and we'll replace it with, and that's the same thing. It doesn't matter what the name of it is. It was the first bank of the United States. Then it was the second bank of the United States. Now it's the Federal Reserve. They can call it whatever they want. It's the International Monetary Fund. So many people are like, yeah, that'll keep all those corrupt politicians and bankers out of it. It'll be the world. The same guys.
Special drawing rights. We'll use
same
those.
Guys.
Yeah.
It's all the same guys. Watch out, guys. Here it comes. Negative interest rate. They charge you to put money in their bank. That's why you spend it faster. You're taking money out because I haven't spent it. I better spend it all now. Inflation solved. Nobody saves anything.
800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, final segment on this Monday. Right now, gold's up 20 and change here, 33.90. Silver's up 30 right now, 36 and a quarter. $20 gold pieces, right? Pre-1933 gold. Man, so crazy to think about. This is what our central bank's done. They took a $20 gold piece. It's now $3,520. And we're probably going to be seeing a price of, $5,000 soon. Next 12 months, 18 months, soon. Real soon. Great job. And now they want a bigger weapon, a digital currency that they can attack us with. $5 Indians down to $910 at 800-951-0592. Now we've got Fed governors lining up, the Fed vice chair, all saying, let's cut rates at the next meeting. So pick me, Donald Trump. Pick me. And then admitting, well, rates are probably going to go up from here. What do they know that we don't? That's what I want to know. Obviously, we'll see here, right? This Iranian thing could blow it all out of the water. The Dow's maybe be giving some back, up 20 right now. And again, most of the good news is Tesla having their self-driving car debut in Austin over the weekend, and it didn't run anybody over, so I guess that's good news. Crude oil, it looks like it's going to turn positive now, so we'll see down 15 cents here, right back to the $74 level. Jason, this is going to take all the air out of the room until it's over. The funny part is gold's going to really move after this, because this is just a distraction. Once we get back to, and maybe that's part of it, maybe this thing lasts long enough that they just pass everything, because, we've got to, the military's got to have their money, blah, 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 da-da-da.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it very well could be, but that's going to be the next leg in the gold rally.
Spend. We know, and here's the thing, it doesn't matter what the budget is. What they say they're putting the money towards can be changed after it's passed. It's just a big glob of money. Right. It's a big glob of money. When it comes down, it's like, okay, well, we've been given permission to spend this amount, but we're going to take a chunk from here and a chunk from there and a chunk from here and whatever they want, right, Joe? And this is probably why it costs, $25 for a fork, right? Because you take $24 for the fork, then you put it towards whatever banking schemes, whatever warmongering, whatever has to happen, and you apply it to the subsidized corporations and banks that need to get paid. They need to get paid, Joe. And you know what? They're not going to hold on to dollars either, are they? They're going to put it in a gold mine, hog up some gold, hog up some investments, put it in some real estate, right? And then all that sloshing money that goes down to the people that they're buying the stuff from. They're holding on to the money like a hot potato, and they're like, what am I doing with this? I want to go buy something else. Like, well, maybe you shouldn't have sold that property. What am I going to do with this? Well, maybe you shouldn't have sold all that gold and silver. Right, Joe?
Got to have it to sell it. 800-951-0592.